Have you ever wondered what comes after a spiritual awakening? I found out firsthand that life after awakening opens the door to new kinds of growth, insight, and possibilities that I never imagined. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 biggest things that happen when your awakening ends and how you can navigate this next chapter with clarity and purpose. The first thing you'll experience as you step into life after awakening is a shift that changes the way you see everyone around you. A couple of years after my awakening, I remember being in situations where I was faced with people that were rude or hurtful or passive-aggressive. And at first I took it personally and my mind was saying, how can they say that? That's so inconsiderate. Why are they being so mean to me? But that only lasted a little while because later on I came back to myself and I realized I have no idea what they're going through. Maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they're struggling at home with their partner or children, maybe they were just laid off from work and they have to take out their anger onto someone just to feel a sense of relief. Now, that's not an excuse to tolerate bad behavior, but there was more understanding that I truly didn't know what the other person was experiencing. And one of the first things that shifts after a spiritual awakening isn't something huge, it's actually fairly subtle, but it's your heart. You begin to have more compassion for everyone and everything. I had a very, very challenging spiritual awakening, and I know that I projected a lot of my anger and a lot of my emotional pain onto other people, many people. And of course, it was never about them, it was about me. I mean, think about it when you're feeling extremely happy, right? When you're happy, it changes how you walk, how you talk, how you interact with others. You might go to the grocery store and have the most amazing interaction with the cashier because you feel so good. And if you feel bad, you're going to be irritated at the grocery store and at the long line at the checkout, and you might make even some passive-aggressive comments to the cashier saying, "Oh, it seems like you guys don't care about opening an extra checkout line or something." And this just proves that it's never about them, it's never about other people, it's about you. And after an awakening, that knowledge deepens and it shifts. You have more compassion for everyone. You realize that people aren't simply good or bad, they're operating from the level of consciousness they have access to in that moment. And you've been there too. So instead of taking everything so personally, instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? Why are they saying that? You start to see the patterns and the pain they might be carrying. That compassion, of course, doesn't just extend to others, it also extends to yourself as well. You become more patient with yourself, you stop being so harsh on yourself, you stop criticizing yourself so much. You've cultivated so much more compassion during your awakening that now it begins to extend in all directions. But that newfound insight doesn't always show up in expected ways. When you're in the middle of a challenging spiritual awakening, you have no motivation, no energy, it's hard to have any goals, your life becomes more about surviving the day-to-day. When your awakening ends, it's easy to think that you will immediately return to a faster pace of life. You will have new dreams, new goals, new motivation, new things to work towards, and so much more energy. And yes, that is going to happen, but not immediately. What I experienced myself and what I often see with my clients is that after a spiritual awakening ends, you go into a hermit mode, a type of deep rest after the chaos of an awakening so you can integrate everything you've learned. Because imagine you have just completed a very intense marathon, right? So you just finished running 26.2 miles. What are you going to do right after? Are you going to collect your medal and immediately go train for another event? No, you're going to take some rest. You're going to rest after exerting your body and all of that energy. And you need time to just recharge, eat, process, and appreciate the win. And it's the same thing with what happens after a spiritual awakening. This stage is also often called the void because it's this weird empty space in between the end of your awakening and between your new life. You don't immediately jump into your new life. You don't immediately jump into your new goals. It's this period of unknowingness and silence and confusion and calm that you may feel. You may think, what do I do? What do I work towards? What are my goals? And this stage for me lasted for about 1.5 years. And, I was still feeling calm when my awakening ended. I had more joy, I had a little bit more energy, but I didn't know what to do next, what to focus on, what to do with my life, what goals to set. And I needed to tell myself that it's okay. And that's okay for you to feel the same way. You've been through intense healing and transformation, and now it's time to rest before you focus on what to do next. And the relationship with yourself isn't the only relationship that will change after your awakening. At the same time as my spiritual awakening began, I started dating someone new. We had wonderful and beautiful times together, and I learned a lot. But at the same time, this partnership brought a lot of triggers, a lot of shadow work, a lot of uncertainty and fear as well. And as my spiritual awakening started to come to an end and I began to feel more grounded in my values, learning what was important to me, what I wanted to prioritize, something began to change within that relationship as well. My relationship felt like it was being tested even more than ever. And then as my spiritual awakening came to an end, so did my relationship. At around the same time, one of my closest friends at the time also decided to cut contact with me. I've been friends with her for a really long time, and that friendship ended as well. So when your awakening comes to an end, you are going to see a lot of changes in your relationships. Some relationships may change and transform, feeling like they can have a fresh start, but other relationships will come to a natural end. Of course, when you really think about it, it's no surprise, right? Because you were in those relationships with a certain level of consciousness, with a certain level of values and perspective and awareness. But your awakening drastically transforms you. So it's natural that these relationships also need to transform. And if they don't, if they are not a match to you anymore, to the new you, they are going to come to an end. So don't be surprised if at the end of your awakening, relationships change or relationships end. It signifies your growth. It signifies your transformation, your new level of awareness, and the things and people that cannot match that new awareness, they're going to have to leave. But this next transformation is one of the biggest changes I observed within myself when my spiritual awakening came to an end. Before my awakening, I was scared of negative emotions. I was bypassing a lot of things, I was suppressing emotions, and when they would come up to the surface, I would get too anxious and overwhelmed, and I would not really know how to regulate myself or what to do with my emotions. I was very scared of conflicts and expressing my desires, opinions and my needs, because I didn't want to cause any conflicts or be rejected. And at the same time, when a difficult challenge would come up in my life, it would very easily throw me off balance and I would just go into complete panic mode. And after my awakening, after all the shit I was forced to deal with, after going to the depths of my emotional pain, I finally felt grounded. And another big thing that happens when a spiritual awakening ends is that you stop running from life and you begin to embrace it fully. You invite negative emotions and you ride it out like a pro surfer surfing a wave. When difficulties or conflicts appear, you feel grounded and calm because you know you can handle it. I mean, you went through a difficult awakening, so what can you not handle? That's as difficult as it gets, in my perspective at least. An awakening shakes you so much, right? It makes you deal with all of these challenges. And then at the end of it, you have this feeling of, wow, I got through this, which means that I can handle things by myself. And to this day, I am so shocked and impressed that I am not scared of life anymore. I'm not scared of the unknown. I'm not scared of uncomfortable emotions or situations. I have such deep trust and confidence within myself that I stopped running from life and I stopped running from challenging experiences. And that's something you will experience too as you come to the end of your awakening. You are going to stop fearing life and you're going to embrace it fully. But here's the thing, even with all this new strength and self-trust, the awakening journey doesn't actually stop here. A spiritual awakening is one of the most challenging, confronting, and overwhelming experiences you will go through. It tests you on every single level and it flips your life upside down. So when you come to the end of it, you are going to feel a sense of relief. You may think to yourself, yes, finally, after years or maybe even decades, I'm finished. I don't need to deal with this shit anymore. Yes, and you will still continue to go through growth spurts. So this experience of awakening is like a big wake-up call, right? So life is shaking you up, waking you up from this deep, deep sleep. You will get through this experience, you will purge a lot, you will heal, you will know yourself better, and you would have a new level of awareness and growth. And at the same time, life will continue to test you, to challenge you, and to wake you up in other little ways. The thing is, our personal growth, our transformation, our awakening never truly ends. There isn't an actual end to this awakening experience. And this is not to scare you and freak you out, but I'm sharing this to empower you. I've still faced very difficult times and painful experiences since my awakening, but the way I handled them was drastically different. There is no way I could have handled them so patiently, so graciously, so connected to myself and my emotions without having learned what I learned during my awakening. I have a new, kind of a new confidence, a new self-trust that I can handle things and I can go through things and I can trust myself. I also have a big range of tools that I can use to support myself. So your awakening never really comes to an end because you are a soul that's evolving and expanding every single day. However, how you handle these challenges, how you handle these difficulties, that's what changes. You're more grounded, you're more centered, and you're more empowered. A spiritual awakening isn't just a one-time event, it's an ongoing journey of growth, self-discovery, and transformation. And the real gift is that you become stronger, you become more grounded, and you become more connected to yourself every step of the way. But here's what most people don't realize. As you continue on this path, life will keep presenting you with a series of spiritual tests. Sometimes subtle, sometimes dramatic. So if you want to know how to recognize these tests and pass them successfully, watch this video next so you can spot the patterns, understand what's really happening, and move through each test with clarity and confidence.